Going into the 2019 draft, I definitely didn't think that the running back was something that the New England Patriots absolutely needed. So it was a bit of a surprise when with the 87th overall pick, they decided to select Damien Harris. Although in hindsight, there is some logic to it. I mean, they did have a lot of injuries in the running back department last season. And honestly, running backs are kind of like pitching in baseball, where when you have enough, go out and get some more. Just because it's such a fluky position, you'll see running backs all the time have a great year and then just never get back to that top form. They're also just a run-heavy team, so having good running game is crucial for that offense to work. I mean, granted, I'm sure they can figure out some sort of system to make Brady be the focal point of that offense. I don't think that would be too big of a problem, but their running game really was incredibly key in their Super Bowl run. Harris is a big physical back. A lot of people view him as just a downhill running back, but I don't really feel like that's the case. He can do it all. Like on this play, he's going to be in motion to the top half of the screen, and take a look at that player right there. Since he isn't following Harris to the top half of the screen, this allows Alabama to know that it's going to be zone coverage. And that's perfect for them, actually, because this is going to be a screen pass, where those two Alabama players are both going to go out to block those two defenders. But basically what I like about this is watch what happens once Tua gets the ball to Harris. He gets over here, but now really he has one guy he has to make miss. Everyone else is accounted for, but you can't block everybody, and so there will be someone who's unblocked on this play. It's going to come down to footwork. Does he have the footwork to get around the person who's closing in on him and trying to make this tackle? And notice how he just makes one slight move, and that's all he needs to get past that initial player. There still was some contact, but that's just not enough. You need a lot of contact if you're going to bring down Harris. Just a little bit of contact won't do the job. Another thing that I do like about Harris is his football IQ. He does seem like a smart runner, which is definitely something that Bill Belichick and the rest of that Patriots front office always looks for in their players. They want guys who know what they're doing. Like on this play, what Alabama's going to do is have their tight end have a one-on-one matchup with that edge rusher right over there, and then their left tackle and left guard will double team that player right over there, and then the left tackle will move up to block a linebacker. So really the whole decision here for Harris is to focus on how good of a block that tight end makes. If the tight end pushes the player to the bottom half of the screen, well then you run to the top half of the screen. If he pushes the player to the top half of the screen, then you run underneath him and try to get around that way. While seemingly having a tight end with just a straight up one-on-one block isn't the best thing in the world, this is actually okay. Because he doesn't have to just block him straight up and push him out of the way in a certain direction, he just has to push him out of the way in any direction. If you push him to the left, good. If you push him to the right, good. Basically the running back is the one that's supposed to do the work here. However, despite that actually didn't work out too well. The tight end wasn't able to make a great block in either direction, really, and now even though the defender is closer to the bottom half of the screen than the top half of the screen, it's not by a ton. So Harris, who had to slow down and wait for this decision, is now going to have to realize at the last second he has to cut up to the top half of the screen, but he is going to end up doing that. Granted, this play was not entirely a positive. He ran into an offensive lineman. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to avoid your players, not run straight into them. So that was kind of a good and a bad. Good job of realizing what you have to do at the last second and cutting over to the right side of the screen. But I would prefer the field vision to be a little bit better. I prefer you to realize that there is an offensive lineman in your way and cut a little bit further over to the top half of the screen. It's kind of a nitpick, really, because the reality is that tight end has to do a better job of pushing the player into one direction or the other. That's not a tough block to make, and it is one that most tight ends in the NFL level will make. So, it's a negative and a positive. So, okay, enough of that. Let's get into actually why the New England Patriots decided to draft him. First, those two Alabama receivers are going to be responsible for blocking two players right over there. And then what Alabama is going to do is have the left guard and left tackle double team that Lafayette player right over there, and then the left tackle will get off the double team and move up to block a linebacker. However, one thing you'll notice is that the defensive lineman did a very good job of not allowing the tackle to get up and block that linebacker. He's doing a great job of controlling the pace, not getting pushed too far, and this is now bad news for Harris. He's not going to be able to get through this gap clean. He's just not going to be able to do it on this play. So what does he do? Does he break to the outside, try to get around the tackles, and try to find some yards that way? Well, no. He's just going to put his head down and run straight through it all. Again, far from an amazing play, but he picked up some yards, and that's important. Sometimes as the running back, that's all you can do. Sometimes the line isn't going to do a perfect job of blocking for you, so you have to try to pick up some yards any way you can. A 5-yard gain is a lot better than a 1-yard loss, so don't try to do anything too fancy sometimes. Just run through whatever hole you have, even if it's not the hole that you wanted. Of course, as we all know, you run to set up the pass. If you run the ball well, this means that you can now use play action, and opposing linebackers will bite on the play action more because you are running the ball well. Like on this play, it's going to be a cover 3 zone, which is great to run play action against, and they are going to be running play action with Harris going to the bottom half of the screen. From there, they'll have a receiver run that route right over there. So basically what I want you to take a look at is take a look at how badly these Arkansas players are going to bite on this play action. Notice how all of them, while at first were trying to sell as though it wasn't going to be cover 3, so they were close, all ran back, but now notice how they're all going forward again. This is because they believe it's going to be a run. So when Tua pulls a trigger, it's going to be an easy catch for a ton of yards. Granted, a lot of craziness happened after this play, and Harris was far from the best player on the field on this play, but it was because of the respect that Harris brings that allowed that play to happen in the first place. And of course, it should be mentioned that Alabama as a whole just had a great running game last year. It wasn't just Harris alone, but I do think that Harris absolutely did his part. One thing that is incredibly important in the running back position is acceleration. It's something I talk about in pretty much every single video I've made about a running back, is acceleration. When it comes to a running back who a lot of their plays come in short spurts, you are going to have to get up to a top speed very quickly, and Harris absolutely can do that. Like on this one, first things first, that tight end is going to have a one-on-one matchup with that Arkansas player right over there. From there, what they're going to do is also have their center have a one-on-one matchup, and they're going to double team the Arkansas interior lineman who's right over there. So then an Alabama player can get off that double team and go block that linebacker. However, this still leaves another player in the box who's completely unblocked. However, of course, Alabama has a plan for him as well, and what they're going to do is fake as though it could be a jet sweep to the top half of the screen. And so once you see after the ball does go to Harris, take a look at that linebacker. He's slightly out of position. He's not a ton out of position at all. He's just a few yards closer to the top half of the screen than Harris is, but he is still farther to the top half of the screen, so this gives Harris a bit of an advantage. Against a lot of players, that wouldn't matter too much. However, look at how quickly Harris accelerates. He gets up to the top speed, and Arkansas player is able to get his hand on his legs, but it's not quite enough, and Harris is able to pick up the first down. The reality is, that really was just acceleration more than anything. That was the #1 key thing on that play. And I also think it does a good job of showing that, hey, just because you get an arm on Harris doesn't mean you're going to bring him down. He's a big, strong guy. You're going to have to make sure that you get on top of him. Just getting a hand on him just really isn't going to be enough. This one's another example. The way it's going to start off is that Tua is actually just going to go around like that. He's going to flip around, and this in theory will fool Arkansas into hopefully getting out of position a little bit. That's kind of the idea. The way the rest of this play works is that they're going to double team that one Arkansas player at the edge, and then everyone else will have one-on-one matchups. And so because everyone is accounted for, once this play develops and the ball is handed off to Harris, really the first guy who could potentially make a tackle will be that Arkansas player way back there. Against lesser running backs, you could easily run in and try to make a tackle very close to the line of scrimmage, perhaps a few yards down the field. Maybe you could give up a couple of yards, but nothing too crazy, and that would set up a third down and medium to third down and long. So he is going to try to cut him off early on, but look at how Harris is able to accelerate and get by him. Once again, he just gets a hand on Harris, and that's not going to be enough. And also, look at how Harris falls forward and picks up even more yards after the contact. You know, Bill Belichick probably loves seeing that, and also probably so does Josh McDaniels, the guy who will actually be coaching him. It's not just the rushing either. Harris can be effective in the passing game, which as we all know is getting more and more important in the NFL, having a running back who can be effective in the passing game. Like what's going to happen here is it is going to be play action to the top half of the screen, and then he's going to run out to the flat on the top half of the screen. So, you know, he fakes the handoff, he runs out, and then Tua is going to decide to hit him as he is very well open right here. And so once Tua makes this throw and gets it over to Harris, take a look at what's happening right now. Harris is relatively open beneath that Arkansas player, but he's crashing in quickly and is going to try to make a very quick tackle. So what would you expect Harris to do? Well, you'd probably expect him to cut up to the top half of the screen, try to get around the corner, and pick up as many yards as possible. That's what you would probably expect him to do, and that would make a lot of sense. And in fact, that is what he's going to do. But what I want you to see here is take a look at how well he does this. Not only is he able to get as many yards as possible, he's able to avoid that tackle altogether and get the first down. That's just good footwork more than anything. I mean, again, Harris absolutely has his strengths, but he really doesn't have any weaknesses. I think that's a lot of the reason why the New England Patriots decided to pick him up with this pick. Sometimes you got to go best player available, and it's definitely a situation where they could use a guy like Harris, so why not pick him up? One last play to talk about, and what's going to happen here is that Alabama is going to have a tight end and their left tackle double team that Arkansas player right over there, and they'll also have a tight end have a one-on-one matchup right there on that side of the screen. And of course, first things first, when you're at your own 1/2 yard line, what you have to do is gain some yards. You have to avoid a safety at all costs. That's what you absolutely have to do, so that's the whole point of this play. And one thing you're going to notice here is that the Arkansas player who is getting blocked by that tight end is actually going to do a very good job of cutting closer to the inside. This now completely closes up the gap that Harris was supposed to run to. Now granted, Harris can just simply cut to the outside, as yes, there is an Arkansas player in that area, but there's also a receiver who can run out and block him. But now the question remains, can Harris notice this that quickly, because the gap that he wants to run through was clogged up. But Harris is a pretty smart guy. Yes, he did run into his own offensive lineman earlier in this video, but as a whole, he has pretty good field vision, and he does cut up to the top half of the screen, and now he's past where he had to get past. Yes, there is an Arkansas player right there, but you know what, that's okay. He picked up the amount of yards he had to pick up. He avoided getting a safety, and now they will have at least a few more yards. Maybe he can get to the 5-yard line or so, and you know, mission accomplished. However, notice what he does here. Notice this move he's going to make. It's just a small thing, and you're probably thinking, well, okay, well now there's contact, so that's no good, right? But really, take a look at this contact. I mean, the Arkansas player is almost on the ground right now, whereas Harris is basically exactly where he'd want to be. His knees are bent, and he's in perfect position to have power and try to break this tackle. So from there, he'll simply just push off of his forearm, and he's able to run past the first down marker. At the very least, they should have a quality guy who can add some depth, and at the very most, he could be a starting level talent. And honestly, you do have to kind of get at the point where you're like, hey, whatever the Patriots are doing, it'll probably end up working. You know, what's the one thing people always say when they're worried about the Patriots? If people say negative things about the Patriots, what's the one thing they can point to? It's Tom Brady's age, the fact that he's definitely getting up there, and who knows if he'll continue to be successful next year. Now, if I'm a betting man, I'd say he'd probably at least be solid next year, but you do never know. And also, injuries are a thing, and if he were to go down, how much faith do you really have in Hoyer? I just don't know. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and honestly, if you're Harris, you have to be pretty stoked about going to the New England Patriots. We'll just have to wait and see if he can help the Patriots get back to their 4th Super Bowl in a row.